Hi guys, RetroBoyJon here, off of that there Twitter. I very recently hit 21,000 followers on Twitter, which is beyond anything I ever thought I'd get. I mean, just insane. I can't even get my head around it. So what I decided to do at the time was to celebrate, say I'll do a Q&A. So here I am to do the Q&A. Dozens and dozens of people replied, which is amazing. I'm not going to have time to go through all the questions, but I've selected a few. And we'll try not to sum them now. Obviously, being RetroBoyJon, it's all written in a notepad, so I'll have to be referring to this. So let's start with the first one. The first one I've gone for is from @NeoDarkside. Oh, and by the way, I'm probably going to pronounce everybody's Twitter name wrong. I apologise for that. Right, his question was, what was the first love at first sight game I had? One that stood out from others, one that created a bond between me and the console, and one that I still own. Well, the first game that really did that to me would probably be Golden Axe on the Mega Drive. We got a Mega Drive when I was probably 10 or 11. We went from a Commodore VIC-20 and an Intellivision, which, as much as I love their systems, they're hardly powerhouses. And the Mega Drive blew me away. And the first game I ever played on it was Golden Axe. So ever since that day, that's my first proper real experience with 16-bit gaming, and that's what created my love for the Mega Drive. So that's the game which stands out the most. Lots of people actually have asked, what's the rarest game in my collection, or the most valuable? Now, I don't collect games because of rarity or value. A lot of my collection I've purchased over, well, many years, back when things were actually affordable, unlike now. So I don't really know. I've probably got some of my weird old C64 ones I've got, which might be worth a lot. I've not checked. I mean, stuff I know is worth a bit. Things like Castlevania New Generation on the Mega Drive, that's 3 figures. Mega Turrican on the Mega Drive as well, that's well into 3 figures. But again, this isn't why I collect stuff, and I've never spent more than about 30-40 quid on a retro game ever. So I don't know, I'd have to check. Next, we have from Jamie, rum or whiskey, and which type? Very relevant. Whiskey, I think, and I'm a bit of a bourbon man. I like a bit of Jack Daniels. It's probably what I'd go for. Next question, from Techie Dad. How did I become such a fan of the Sega Master System? Because they're in all my photos. Well, yeah, when I take photos on Twitter, my Master System games are always in the shot. Well, I actually do that for 2 reasons. Firstly, because rather than watermarking everything, it's very clear it's my photos if I use the same background and everything. But yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of the Master System. I've always loved it. First played one around a friend as a kid. Never had one until I was older. But as 8-bit machines go, it's my favourite. I love the library, I love the games. I'm afraid I do prefer it to the NES. And yeah, really happy to have a reasonable collection of games for it. Next question. Moki said, first item that started my love for retro gaming, and was there something that made me realise I was a collector? It's hard, isn't it? Because I've been playing games which are retro since I was a kid. I first started playing in the mid-80s when I was like knee-high to a grasshopper. So I don't think there was a specific game that actually made me, oh, I'm a collector now. I think when I was probably in my 20s and started rebuying a lot of Mega Drive games that I stupidly got rid of as a kid, I started realising that, yeah, this is something I was really into, and this is something that I wanted to keep doing. So maybe that made me realise as a collector. Right, Dr. Jun says, what's my favourite gamepad of any generation and why? That's difficult, because it depends on the system, doesn't it? I mean, for older stuff, probably the Mark II Sega Saturn gamepad. I mean, it's got a D-pad like, it's just the best ever, especially for fighting games. Really comfortable hold, really big fan of that. With newer stuff, I mean, Xbox 360, Xbox One, I find particularly comfortable. Not going to lie, the PlayStation ones with the analog sticks next to each other, I find less comfortable than the offset ones, so I prefer those. Next, Tech Guru says, have you had any major setbacks? If so, what, and what happened to overcome said hurdle? Well, if relating to Twitter, not really. I've just grown slowly over time. But in life, yeah, we all have setbacks, don't we? Regularly, especially, I mean, in 2020 with all the rubbish happening around us. I think many of us are going through hard times. I think, like anybody, you just have to find small goals you can achieve, and you just need to find ways to get through and not to give up, really. Right, next question from Fabrizio. I can't even say your names. Fabrizio Costa. I don't know. Will I ever grow my beard again, or will I continue to show insolence and displease the gods? Even though you didn't know, I had a beard down to about here a little while ago. I shaved it off, but I am like a hyperactive child. I get really distracted and really excited about things quickly, and that changes my mind. And so, yeah, of course, I'll grow it back sometime, and then I'll shave it off again, and then I'll grow it back, and then I'll probably have a red Mohican. Okay, next. I can't even read the name of that one, but I was asked the first game I remember playing. That would be a game called, I think it's called Tornado, on the Commodore VIC-20. Again, it would have been the mid-80s. I must have been 4 or 5, and my dad's VIC-20. Side-scrolling shooter. Very basic, but a lot of fun from what I remember. I think my dad still has a copy, so next time I'm there, when all this lockdown rubbish is over, I might have to steal it. Next. Look, again, several people have asked me, what's the best video game of all time? That's impossible to answer, isn't it? I mean, what quantifies the best? What would be my favourite? Is that better than another one? I really don't know. There's some which are incredibly influential, which are some of my favourites. Going back to the sort of 16-bit era, Flashback on the Mega Drive from Delphine Software. I mean, it wasn't the first game to use the rotoscoping technique for that really fluid animation and quite cinematic experience, but it was one of the better ones to do it. I mean, after games like Another World, I think Prince of Persia used it as well, but Flashback did it fantastically. The game was beautiful. It still looks so smooth to play now. The storyline is really, really interesting as well. I think that's a very important game. It's one of my favourites as well, so maybe that, just to be different. Right. Alejandro Diaz has asked, did I ever think I would make it this far? No, of course not. When you start a Twitter account, well, I actually started mine to complain to my bank. So it wasn't even for games, but then I started following a few gamers, and before you knew it, I started to grow and started to enjoy showing what I've got and having discussions, and it's just grown over time. But no, I certainly didn't think 21,000 people would follow little old me, so that's for sure. Bonnie the Squirrel, or Bonnie the Squirrel, has asked what's my favourite comic or comic strip. So, well, my favourite comic is, was when I grew up, 2000 AD, and my favourite strip within that was Judge Dredd, and it still is. Love a bit of Judge Dredd. Ellipse Gamer has asked, if I had to throw one of my games machines and all the games into a furnace of death, what's going in? Well, that's really difficult. I hate to say it, probably the NES. Nothing against it. I love it, but it's not something I ever really owned or played as a kid. It's something I've got, and I've only got probably 15 or so games for it, and I enjoy it, but I just don't really have that big hit of nostalgia for it. So I imagine that might be one of the ones I'd throw in. Not that I want to. It's Much More has said, if I could change something from gaming history, what would it be? It's a really good question, really hard to answer. Maybe being a bit of the Sega fanboy that I am, I'd probably go back and convince Sega not to have given up on the Dreamcast. I mean, that was obviously their last console. I still prefer it to everything else from that generation, and that's not just because I like Sega so much. I think it was a genuinely brilliant machine. And I like a lot of fans of Sega and newer fans of games in general. I don't think we are pleased that Sega left the console market. So if I could change that, I'd definitely do that. A couple of people have asked, is there anything I love enough to give up for games? Obviously my son and all that, but I'm really, really into cars, like retro older cars as well. I've got a 1989 Nissan, which I love. It's falling apart, but I love it. Would I want to give up for games? No, but if I had to give up games, I'd have to throw myself more into that because I need a hobby. Next, again, a couple of people asked how many games do I own. I'll be honest, I'm not that much of an anal person that I count them all the time. I really don't know. It's in 4 figures. It's over 1,000, probably less than 2,000, somewhere in there. If we're counting downloaded games and stuff as well, then God knows. But yeah, quite a lot. But I've been buying games since I was a kid, so this isn't a new thing. My collection has grown very slowly over time. again, a couple of people, if I had to pick one console, what would it be and why? Well, it's probably no surprise to anyone knows me, it'd probably be the Mega Drive. The reason I pick it was, again, it was the first proper decent console I got when I was a kid. I was the right age to get into it, and I've got a library of a couple of hundred Mega Drive games. And yeah, I mean, it brings me the most nostalgia, which is why we all do this, let's be honest. So yeah, that's the one I'd keep. And finally, very important question this. Robin has asked me, spaghetti hoops or beans on toast? I don't think there's much of a decision to be made there as a beans on toast, definitely, with some cheese. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. Just a short video, a few questions. Hope you found it as interesting as I found it nerve-wracking. Thanks again.